For many years, people's thoughts have been preoccupied with the Easter Island mystery, a remote piece of volcanic soil in the Pacific Ocean that is far away. But there are hundreds of other such lonely islands on Earth. What makes this one so remarkable is that the secret isn't on the island. Did they perform any particular function? Where did their creators arrive from, and where did they disappear? So, it looks like the answer is finally just around the corner, so watch this video and satisfy your curiosities. Remember to give us a thumbs up if you've learned all of Easter Island's secrets. We strive to make your life brighter by sharing all of these facts with you. What do we know about the island itself? Chile is the land of Rapa Nui, which is the name given to Easter Island by its first inhabitants. It is located in the southern Pacific Ocean, and it borders Peru. And it's still pretty hard to believe that it's one of the world's most remote locations. It lies 1,200 miles distant from Pitcairn. If you want to reach this endpoint, you'll need to spend 5 hours on the plane from Santiago, Chile to Easter Island. The island measures 63 square miles, and despite its small size, it is home to 887 enormous stone statues. Here are a few facts about them that you may not be aware of. The figures are known as buoys. They began being carved sometime between the 13th and 15th centuries. Rapa Nui sculptures are easily identified. They have long noses, wide chins, rectangular ears, hefty brows, and deeply set eyes. The nostrils curl in the manner of fishhooks. Surprisingly, people initially thought that the statues were only constructed by their heads. But to everyone's surprise, it was discovered that there are complete bodies linked to those tiny heads. It was discovered during excavations in May 2012. The bodies were just hidden underground. The statues are actually enormous. The tallest is 33 feet tall and weighs 90 tons. However, that wasn't the case when you arrived on the island. It was missing something. According to scientific computations, it must have grown to 70 feet in height and weighed approximately 297 US tons. When considering the size of the sculptures, their heads make up 3/8 of each statue's overall measurement, as well as for the bodies resting in various postures. For the arms, they were carved against the bodies resting in different positions. The majority of statues, 887, were carved from tough volcanic ash, which is compressed. The majority of the statues, with the exception of one group, face inland, implying that their backs are turned towards the sea. Perhaps it was because they felt the figures were their protectors. That's why they overlooked the settlement. The only examples that don't fit into this pattern may be seen at Aluk Evi, sacred site for Rapa Nui people. There is a one-of-a-kind statue on the island, and it is the only one found in a kneeling position. It's called Katori. According to scientists, the figure depicts an ancient singer, with his posture reflecting that taken at the Rui festival. The statue's head is raised considerably, and a beard can be seen. Katori appears to be more human-like than the other statues. It's smaller in size, and it has an unusual composition. The statue stands out owing to the fact that it is made of red puna pua stone. Keep watching. There are still several mysteries to address. People wonder how the statues of such enormous weight were transported all over the island. What happened when Europeans first arrived in 1722? They discovered a tiny indigenous population of between 1,500 and 3,000 people. How could it correlate with the hundreds of statues on the island? There had undoubtedly been a number of hypotheses attempting to explain how the statues were moved. Among the fans of mysteries, one of the most popular beliefs is that the sculptures were produced and relocated by aliens. But we're sorry to disappoint you, the stone from which the figures were carved is also from Santorini itself. The birthplace of most of the material was an extinct volcano. Located in the northeast of Easter Island and not connected to any other planet, the riddle surrounding how Rapa Nui people could move the statues perplexed researchers throughout the 1980s, when some of them tried to rebuild a statue and test their hypothesis. The tools they were allowed were limited, but an American archaeologist was eventually able to shift a 10-ton replica using only Aborigine-made tools. Several decades passed, and another team of Americans arrived. The ancient islanders were shown to be able to tie ropes and circle the huge statues, which they could move with a walking motion. They proved their hypothesis by moving a full-sized replica for 330 feet using this method. Actually, their idea may explain why. The statues were moved to their locations by means of magic, according to Rapa Nui folklore. But what about the remaining question? How could a handful of inhabitants create such magnificent and numerous monuments? According to a recent research, the maximum number of people who lived on the islands in its heyday was determined. The findings were quite unexpected. It turned out that as many as 17,500 people could live on the island. At least 19% of the land might be cultivated with sweet potato fields, which were formerly the primary source of food for the population. What's more, islanders ate a lot of seafood and fish. Knowing these figures, you may see that there were enough people to create the rock masterpieces. But what happened to them? Why did they disappear? The common theory was that the population had decreased as a result of ecological factors, such as deforestation and palm clearance. They thought the trees would grow back quickly enough, according to their agricultural engineers. The islands are currently uninhabited, but there were once about 2,000 people living on them. They cultivated the fields with volcanic rock. In fact, another study has shown that people had been residing on the island for many centuries and that the population had only started to decrease when Europeans began visiting. So a much more realistic explanation is also very sad. Slavers from South America raided the islands throughout the 19th century in search of slaves. Around half of Aborigines were kidnapped away. The Iriomote people, who lived on the remote island of Iriomote in southern Japan, developed a culture that was distinct. They have never been conquered by other nations or civilizations and had no contact with the outside world for almost 1,000 years. Have you heard these statistics before? Please share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Click like on the video below to see more material.